So before you start this sheet, I want you to stop the video and I want you to read what it says at the top of this paper where it says what is a proportion. And if you understand what I'm asking you to do with problems A through D, just do them and notice that the answers are upside down and on the bottom. And I will come back and I'll explain these to you if you need me to. So make sure you stop that video. All right, welcome back. So as you know right now, a proportion basically are two fractions that are equal. So what I'm asking you to do right here is use cross products. So cross products are saying if you multiply the tops and the bottoms of the opposite fractions, if they're equal, then they form a proportion. So if I do this I get 4 times 2 is 8, 10 times 1 is 10, and are those equal? No. So we're going to write the symbol equals with a line through it, which means not equal. Basically, just do the same thing with the rest of them. You just cross multiply and see if they are equal. If they're equal, you write an equal sign. If they're not, you draw an equal sign with a line through them, which means not equal. So hopefully this skill is a little bit review. We're going to get a little bit more advanced today, but when you're given a proportion, if I give you two fractions and I tell you that they are equal, then they are a proportion. And so in this problem right here, I'm asking you to find x. I want you to use cross products to do this. So what I'm going to do, and I do want you to write down the equation. So the work that I'm showing here is exactly what I want you to be doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, so since I know these two fractions are equal, then I know that 4 times x is going to equal 5 times 10. So I just cross multiply. I say 4x equals 50. And so now I have a one-step equation where I'm now trying to solve for x. So to get x alone, I undo the multiplication by dividing both sides by 4. And so then what I get here is I get that x is equal to 50 over 4, or we're going to go ahead and just reduce that fraction to give me, divide by 2, 25 over 2. And so the answer to this problem is 25 over 2. So now to check it, checks, of course, can be kind of a pain in the butt, but that's okay, we can do this. On the check, I'm going to say 5/4 equals 25 over 2 over 10. So this side is really already done. No need to change it to a decimal or anything or a mixed number. Just leave it as 5/4. We're going to see, is the other side also equal to 5/4? So this is a complex fraction. So remember, essentially what I'm asking you to do is 25 over 2 divided by 10, which remember is 25 over 2 times 1 over 10. So multiply straight across and you get 25 over 20. And 25 over 20, divide the top and the bottom by 5, does give you 5 over 4. So in the end, you do get that 5 over 4 is equal to 5 over 4. All right? Now, that's one way to do your check. There is another way to do your check. So just tune into this one. So I know that the whole thing was equal to 25 over 2. And so when I replace it, we could cross multiply when we do our check. So I could say 5 over 4 is equal to 25 over 2 over 10. So I could cross multiply. I could say 5 times 10 is 50. And then I could say 4 times 25 over 2. So that's going to look like this. 4 times 25 over 2. And remember, that's 4 over 1. 2's cancel out, so that comes 2 times 25, which is 50. So you could get a check that says 50 equals 50 if you decide to do your check by cross multiplying, because it's a proportion, right? Two fractions, if they are equal, their cross products will also be equal. I will accept either check. Now solve B without my help. Stop the video, solve it, and check it, and then tune back in to make sure that you did it correctly. All right, welcome back. So if you did everything correctly for this one, you should have gotten A equals 12. So both checks, I'll show you two ways. So I could start by saying 21 over 35 equals, replace the A with the 12, 12 over 20. You have two fractions there. You could go ahead and reduce the fractions. 21 over 35, you could divide the top and the bottom there by 7, which gives you then 3/5, And then over here, 12 over 20, you could divide the top and the bottom by 4. So I'm just reducing the fraction, and again, I get 3/5. The other way, and I don't care which way you do, is you could just cross multiply. So if you cross multiply, you get 21 over 35 equals 12 over 20, and then you just cross multiply. You just multiply 12 times 35 and 21 times 20. And if you do that, you should get 420 is equal to 420. So since the cross products are equal, you did the problem correctly. Now let's look at the next problem. Problem is a little bit trickier. Oh, in my problem it looks like it's missing a minus sign there. So let's put the minus sign in there. That should say x minus 8 over 10 equals 3/4. So this is why understanding what the cross products are is going to be helpful. You have a fraction equals a fraction. We could clear the fraction right here by multiplying both sides by 10, or we could just cross multiply. So this is a little bit different. So if you looked at this problem differently, that's okay. We're going to cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply 10 times 3, and then I'm going to multiply 4 times x minus 8. Now when you do the 4 times x minus 8, all of x minus 8 has to be multiplied by the 4, so the x minus 8 should go in parentheses. And then so you get 4 times the x minus 8 is equal to, well, 10 times 3 is 30. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Then distribute that 4 in there. So then you get 4x minus 32 equals 30. And then add 32 to both sides. And then you get 4x equals 62. And then divide both sides by 4. And you should get here x is equal to, well, it's 15.5, but let's make it 62 over 4, and then let's reduce it, divide the top and the bottom by 2, which gives you 31 over 2. And so what I would do is just leave this problem as x equals 31 over 2. Or you could say 15.5, either way. So if you want to stop the video and try your check on your own and then tune back in, you can, or you can just watch this one. So I'm going to do 31 over 2 minus 8. In this case, it really might be easier to just say 31 over 2 is 15.5. So I'm going to do 15.5 minus 8, because I can do that in my head. 15.5 minus 8 is easy. So then I have minus over 10 is equal to 3/4. So you do, when you check, you do actually have to do 15.5 minus 8 first. When you do that, that gives you 7.5, right? So what I have here is 7.5 over 10 is equal to 3/4. So from this step, if you want to, you can cross multiply. You can do 7.5 times 4, which, you know, you could plug 7.5 into your calculator times 4, even though I don't like doing that. I actually want you to try it, but since it's a half, it's easy. And then cross multiply the 10 and the 3, and then if you do that, you'll get 30 equals 30. If you want to try to see if this is equal to 3/4, you could look at it this way. You could change 7.5 to an improper fraction, which would give me 15 over 2, right? Over 10. So divided by 10, remember, is the same as multiplying by 1/10. So really what I have is 15 over 2 times 1 over 10, 15 over 2 times 1 over 10, and then I multiply straight across and get 15/20. And does 15/20 reduce to 3/4? It does. If I divide the top and the bottom by 5, 15 divided by 5 is 3, and 20 divided by 5 is 4. So you do get 3/4 equals 3/4. Cross multiplying sometimes turns out to be a little bit easier. So the other check you could have had, again, you could have 30 equals 30. Either one, I'll accept either one. Let's look at the next problem. All right, same problem. Different problem, same process. Go ahead and cross multiply. So you're going to do this 8 at the bottom times this numerator of -3 plus 4x, and that's going to be equal to 6 times 5x minus 9. So I'm going to write it like this: 8 parentheses -3 plus 4x. Make sure that the -3 plus 4x is in parentheses or you're going to get it wrong. Equals 6 parentheses 5x minus 9. Now I encourage you at this point, go ahead and stop the video, solve the problem, check it, see if you can do it without my help, and then tune back in. If you feel like you still need assistance, then go ahead and stay listening and pay attention. All right, so I'm going to distribute the 8 now, and when I distribute the 8, I get -24 plus 32x equals, distribute the 6 on the other side, 30x minus 6 times 9 is 54. All right, remember to collect first. Remember, get your variables to one side of the equal sign first. So I'm going to subtract 30x first. So if you decided to add 24 or add 54 to each side first, what you're doing is the isolating step. And the problem will still work out, but it's important. I really want you to try to get variables to one side first, because if it ends up giving you a special product, it's easier to see. Like if the variables cancel out, it's easier to see. So always collect before you isolate. So then I have negative 24 plus 2x equals negative 54. Now I'm going to add 24 to both sides. This is my first step of isolating. Isolating is getting the variable alone. So then I get 2x equals, well, negative 54 plus 24 is negative 30. Divide both sides by 2, and you get here that x is equal to negative 15. All right? Now when you do the check, you actually have to do some math at the top. So I'm going to have 5x minus 9. So instead of 5x minus 9, I'm going to put 5 times negative 15 minus 9 over 8. Whoopsie, something crazy is happening. Over 8 equals negative 3 plus 4 times negative 15 over 6. So now do the math at the top first, all right? So 5 times negative 15, well, that is negative 75 minus 9 over 8. Well, negative 75 minus 9 just happens to be negative 84 over 8 now. Now, at this point, we can reduce that fraction if we want, or we can just do the other side and then cross multiply, right? So at the top, you have to do 4 times negative 15 first, which is negative 60. So I have negative 3 minus 60 over 6, which then reduces to negative 63, or not reduces, but simplifies to negative 63 over 6. So at this point, I can reduce each fraction. So negative 84 over 8, I believe, can be divided by, what, 4? So I can divide the top and the bottom by 4. And when I do that, that reduces to negative 21 over 2. And then the other side, I could do negative 63 over 6. And it looks like, what can that be divided by? 3. So I divide the top and the bottom there by 3. And I do get negative 21 over 2. So right here, if you reduce the fraction, you can see that it works. Or if you want it to just multiply 6 times negative 84 and 8 times negative 63 to see if indeed they do actually work, then it works. So if you do that, you should be getting, let's see here, negative 504 on both sides. So you could have this as your check, or you could have negative 504 equals negative 504. Whichever one you like the best. So moving on to letter E. This is the same type of problem, you just cross multiply. So I'm going to ask that you stop the video right now and tune back in to make sure that you've got it right. So here you should have gotten that x is equal to 22. If you didn't, stop the video and look at my work. I'll do the check with you just to see. So now we're putting 22 in for x. So what I'm going to have is 22 plus 2 over 2 times 22 minus 4. And we're hoping that that's going to give us 3/5. So let's look. The top, 22 plus 2, well, that's 24. The bottom, I have 2 times 22, which is 44, and 44 minus 4 is 40. So I have 24 40ths equals 3/5. I could reduce 24 40ths. You could divide the top and the bottom by 8, which gives you 3/5. Or, at that stage, I could cross multiply. I could do 5 times 24 and 4 times 30, both of which will give you 120. So you should get 120 equals 120. Either one of those checks will work. So now that you know how to solve proportions, it can help you solve other equations. So any equations with fraction bars pretty much can be turned into proportions, and you can solve them that way if you want to. All right, so we can easily make these problems, these 4 problems right here, proportions by just simply putting it over 1. So when you see fraction bars and you're like, oh, I don't remember what to do, you could. So to solve f, you could multiply both sides by x and go from there, or you could make the 6 over 1 and cross multiply, right? So 1 times 12x minus 30 is just 12x minus 30 equals 6x, and then you can solve the problem from there. So basically for g as well, put it over 1, take this, put it over 1, take this, put it over 1. You can solve them that way, all right? So go ahead, try that. The problems I've just written out there, go ahead, you don't have to check these, just cross multiply, see if you can solve for x. So stop the video, do these 4 problems, and tune back in. So I went ahead and worked through f for you. Remember, collect first. So in this case, I subtracted 12x from both sides. Then I divided both sides by -6. I got x equals 5. For the next problem, g, I get x is equal to -2. For h, I got x is equal to 3 over 2 or 1.5, however you want to say it. And then I is x equals -8. If you didn't get these right, stop the video, see if you can find your mistake. If you can't, ask a question. Get help from your group or from me or the other teacher that's in the room. So we can also use proportions to help us solve some word problems. So I've done the first one with you, and I want you to notice that I'm labeling each thing. So let me walk you kind of through what I'm doing. So this is kind of how I'm setting it up so that you can figure it out. There's actually 4 different ways you can set up proportions. So let's just read the question. So number 1 says, bronze is an alloy of copper and tin. If a certain type of bronze requires 0.3 kilograms of tin per 1 kilogram of copper, how much tin must be combined with 50 kilograms of copper? So basically, bronze being an alloy of copper and tin is basically saying bronze is made up of copper and tin, and it's a proportional amount each time. So whenever you're comparing things, then this is an example of when you can set up a proportion to solve them. So this first part right here, 0.3 kilograms of tin per 1 kilogram of copper, that's basically those 2 things go together. So if I've got 0.3 over 1, well, notice the 0.3 stands for kilograms of tin. So over here on the right, I've written kilograms of tin. Then over, or on the left, not right, and then over here, I've got this 1, and then over here on the left, I have kilograms of copper because the 1 stands for copper. Now, this side of the proportion, I set up as tin over copper, and these are, that's the first ratio. So then I'm saying, okay, well, how many kilograms of tin, which is x, we don't know how many, will there be in 50 kilograms of copper? So then I did tin over copper here. So however you set up one side of the proportion, you have to set the other side of the fraction up the same exact way, in the same order, right? So now all I have to do is cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, you're just multiplying 0.3 times 50 and 1 times x. Well, 1 times x is easy. It's just x equals, and then what is 0.3 times 50? That gives me 15. So I get x is equal to 15. Don't stop there. You have to tell me 15 what? Well, the question was how much tin must be combined with 50 kilograms of copper? Well, that would be 15 kilograms of tin. So you have to be very, very specific. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one, a flagpole casts a shadow 11 yards long. If a man that is 6 feet tall casts a shadow 8 feet long at the same time and the same location, how tall is the flagpole? All right, so this problem, we are talking about a shadow and a person and a shadow and a flagpole. So let's take, I like to personally take the information that is in the first, in one ratio. So I know that the man that's 6 feet tall casts a shadow that's 8 feet long. So what I'm dealing with here, how I'm going to set my proportion up is I'm going to talk about the height of the man, right, over the shadow. So I'm doing the height of the man or the object over the shadow. So that's how I'm setting mine up. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to say, okay, so the man is 6 feet. So I'm going to write over here that this is in feet, so they know. And the shadow is 8 feet. All right, so then now I have here, okay, the flagpole casts a shadow that's 11 yards long. So over here, since I have height over shadow, well, where does the shadow have to go over here? You have to do height over shadow here. So I'm going to put here the flagpole shadow is going to be on the bottom. And notice that's being measured in yards. That's okay, because the top is going to be the height of the flagpole, you know what? That answer will also end up being in yards. So notice here, if you have feet over feet, and then you put yards over here, your answer will end up yards over yards. If I decided to put feet over yards, and then over here I would get feet over yards. So if you're allowed to set up proportions with 2 different units. If you have 3, one of them needs to be converted. But in this case, there's no conversion that needs to happen. So that 11 goes on the bottom. So you get 11, and this is going to be x. So you don't have to do any conversions at all. You just, have to figure out the answer by cross multiplying. So 8 times x is 8x. 6 times 11 is 66. Divide both sides by 8. Well, 8 is not divisible by 6, but it's a good idea to get a mixed number here. So 66 over 8, does go in there 8 times. There is 1/4 left over. So it's going to be 8 1/4. Whoops, not a half. 8 1/4. And then the answer here would be in yards. All right? So now that's not the only way you could do it. If you wanted to set up one side of your proportion to be height and the other side of your proportion to be shadow, you could do that as well. So let me just show you that real fast. So I could, on one side of my proportion, I could say this side of my proportion, my left side, is going to be height. I'm going to talk about the height of the man in feet over the height of the flagpole in yards, all right? Then the other side of the proportion then would be the shadow, right? So since the top is the height of the man, the top here is going to be the shadow of the man, that's in feet, and over here is going to be the shadow of the flagpole, that's in yards, all right? So then we would fill it in the numbers here. All right, so the labels on the side, I really want them there. So here, a flagpole casts a shadow that's 11 yards. Well, where does that go? Well, that goes in the bottom where I said I was going to put 11. So that stands for 11 yards. If a man is 6 feet tall, casts a shadow 8 feet long, well, the man is 6 feet tall. So I put the 6 here and the 8 here. And I'm asking, okay, how tall is the flagpole? So I'm asking for the height of the flagpole in yards. So notice I did feet over yards, feet over yards. This side is just talking about the height of the objects. This side is talking about the shadows. If you notice, when you cross multiply, you still get 8x equals 66, okay? So you also could flip it. You could put yards on top and feet on the bottom and get a whole other proportion. So just know there are actually 4 different ways you could set up proportions. You just have to be consistent. However you set up one side, you have to set up the other side the same exact way. All right, moving on to number 3. This is the last problem I'm going to do with you. See if you can read it to yourself right now and see if you can set up the proportion on your own. This one's a little bit tricky, so stop the video, read it, see if you can set it up and tune right back in. All right, so we know the problem right here. The ratio of girls to boys is the same. So I'm going to show you all the different ways that you could actually set this problem up. What I did first is I said, all right, since I know the ratio of girls to boys is the same, I'm going to make one ratio that represents the girls and one that represents the boys. That's how I did it first. If you didn't do it this way, that's okay. Stay tuned in. You'll probably find your proportion in here. So now I know that there are 16 boys on the Bellevue team and 20 boys on the Hickory team. So I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to start with 16 over 20. I think I said 12, but I meant 20. So 16 stands for the Bellevue team. So I'm just going to write Bell here. And 20 stands for the Hickory team. So I'm putting Bell on the top and Hickory on the bottom. So now the other tricky part about this, it says there are 3 more girls on the Hickory team than on Bellevue. All right, so now notice I need to have Bellevue on the top and Hickory on the bottom because that's how I set this side up, Bell over Hickory. So that's what I'm going to do here. I got to do Bell over Hickory. So what this says is there are 3 more girls on the Hickory than on Bellevue. Well, Bellevue, we don't know how many girls there are, but we can call that X. Hickory, we know there are 3 more, so it's going to be X plus 3. And then we're going to solve that proportion by cross-multiplying. Another way you could do is you could keep it the same way, except you're putting Hickory on the top. So you could have X plus 3 over X is equal to 20 over 16. And so the only thing that would change here are your labels here. The Hickory would be on the top, and Bellevue would be on the bottom. Another way to look at it is, well, I want one whole side of my proportion to be the Bellevue. Whoopsie. I want one whole side of my proportion to be Bellevue. So I could say, all right, so I'm going to then do boys over girls. So the top could be the boys, the bottom could be the girls, and then this side would be all the Bellevue, and then over here could be all the Hickory, right? And I'm still doing boys over girls. Sorry, my handwriting's getting a little bit bad here because I'm trying to write small. So if you do that, boys over girls for Bellevue, well, that would be just the boys would be 16 boys on Bellevue over X girls on Bellevue. We don't know. So I'm doing Bellevue, this over this, right? So you do that. And then over here, it would be, well, there's 20 boys on the Hickory team over X plus 3 on the girls' team. And then if you wanted to, you could flip that. You could say the girls are on the top and the boys are on the top. So you could have X over 16 is equal to X plus 3 over 20. Now if you look at all four of these that I've just written, the cross products, the 16 and the X plus 3 are all across from each other, and the X is always across from the 20. So all of these will end up giving you the right answer. So go ahead and solve it. And then the question, make sure you answer the question, how many girls are on each team? So you should give me two answers here. How many girls are on each team? Solve it. I'm not going to give you the answer to this one. You guys can compare answers. Good luck. Your homework is to finish the rest of this packet.